Put your hands where I can see them. That's what the HOA president yelled at me, like I was some criminal she'd caught red-handed, while a crew bolted a giant steel gate across the only road to my own farm. The same road I'd just finished paving, with money left behind from my wife's life insurance. The asphalt was so fresh you could still smell it, and there I was, police lights flickering across the hood of my truck as Officer Williams walked over, eyes tired, hand on his belt, like he'd rather be anywhere else. "Sir, step out of the vehicle." My hands were shaking on the wheel. "This is my property," I whispered, but Rebecca Davis, real estate attorney and HOA president, just smiled that cold attorney smile. "Actually, Mr. Thompson, you just committed a $15,000 crime." The padlock snapped shut, and that was the moment I realized everything I thought I knew about property rights. I was about to get an education the hard way. I remember that sound, the hydraulic drivers hammering those fence posts, rattling my fillings as grit rained down from the ditch. Just 2 weeks earlier, this was nothing but mud and ruts. I'd stood out there in the rain, boots sinking, watching the roller pack that blacktop tight, feeling, for the first time since Anna died, that maybe I was turning a corner. I even texted my sister a photo. Finally, equipment can reach the barn. And that pride, that tiny win, it lasted exactly 14 days, until I found myself standing in the shadow of men who'd never lifted a shovel for this place, watching them square off my future with a string line I never asked for. Officer Williams was doing his best to keep it calm, telling me to step out so we can sort this out, but his partner was already writing notes, Rebecca hovering, looking ready to turn the whole thing into a TED Talk about community standards. I killed the engine, boots hitting fresh asphalt with a thud that echoed off the rumbling concrete mixer. "Officers, this man built an illegal road and is currently trespassing on HOA property," Rebecca announced, voice sharp enough to cut. My face was burning with anger, disbelief, the whole 9 yards. "I paved my own access road. I have county permits. Right here." But she was already scrolling her tablet like she'd rehearsed it, ready to turn every document into a weapon. You ever stand in front of someone and realize they hold all the cards just because they say they do? That's what it felt like. Her confidence wasn't just legal, it was personal. Meanwhile, the neighbor across the road barely nodded hello, eyes darting away when Rebecca glanced his direction. Like out here, you could get in trouble for waving at the wrong time. Officer Williams squinted at my documents, and his partner at Rebecca's. There was my road, a thin yellow line on the HOA's map, labeled a utility easement, not a travel easement. Looked neat, official, and totally backwards for what we were actually standing on. "Ma'am, do you have documentation that this area is HOA property?" Williams asked, and she fired back instantly, pulling up community founding documents from 2019. Mr. Thompson never sought approval for this construction project. I held up my county permits, all the stamps and signatures, but Rebecca was already signaling to the crew, slicing her hand through the air. They moved like it was just another Tuesday, string line, dry mix, level, doing their job, not caring about the drama. When I stepped forward, palms open, the foreman stared past me. Work was his language, and I wasn't in the conversation. Officer Jackson snapped his notebook shut. "This is a civil matter, folks. Handle it through the courts." Williams handed back my permits, shrugged, and said what I'd heard too many times in the last 6 months. "You might want to contact a lawyer." As the officers walked off, the installation crew kept working, burying those gateposts like nothing could stop them. Rebecca stood beside me, just close enough that I could smell her expensive perfume mixing with the diesel and dust. "I tried to warn you," she said softly, as if we were old friends. "Some people just don't understand how communities work." I wanted to ask, what community? The one that sends a casserole when your barn burns, or the one that sends a lawsuit when you lay gravel in the wrong spot? I watched as they set the steel gate, a 6-foot wall across my $15,000 road. Rebecca tucked her tablet under her arm, heels clicking as she headed to her black SUV. "Good day, Mr. Thompson," she said, not even looking back. My farm was just a quarter-mile down that road, 50 acres I bought with Anna's insurance money. Her last gift, her last wish. "Don't let them push you around, Michael," she'd whispered in the hospital. "Stand up for what's right." But standing up had landed me here, watching everything I'd built get locked behind a gate I didn't have a key for. I sat in my truck, just staring at that gate. My phone buzzed, a text from my sister. "How's the new road working out?" "But it makes life easier." I laughed, bitter. How do you tell someone you've just been outmaneuvered by strangers with a nicer spreadsheet? That the American dream of property rights comes with fine print you can't even see until someone else decides you're in the wrong? And let me tell you, this wasn't about a road anymore. It was about whether ordinary people could still fight back when organized power lines up against you. 6 months earlier, I'd stood in that exact spot, scattering Anna's ashes at sunrise, making her a promise to start over somewhere peaceful. The dirt road was frozen, but I was full of hope. That spring, hope turned to mud. Every rainstorm turned the track into soup. Delivery trucks got stuck, UPS stopped coming, and the only way in was through frustration. So I did what anyone would do. I paved it, filed the paperwork, paid the fees, hired the best crew in the county. The engineer even joked, "More people should do what you're doing." And for about a week, I thought the worst was behind me. That's when Rebecca's black SUV rolled up, slow like a predator circling. "What exactly are you doing?" she asked. Her tone made it clear she wasn't just being neighborly. When I showed her the county permits, she looked at them like they were written in invisible ink. "Interesting," she said, and drove away. The warning came from the crew chief, Frank, who'd seen his share of land disputes. "Some of these HOA folks think they own everything they can see," he said, shaking his head. I waved him off, figured he was being dramatic. I was wrong. 2 weeks later, the county zoning office called, asking about unpermitted construction. I brought in my folder of documents, feeling like a kid headed to the principal's office. The county attorney looked at my papers, then at a complaint filed by the association. "These cases always get messy," he said. "Keep your receipts." That night, I drove my new road in silence, headlights sweeping across the blacktop that had cost me more than money. Then came the cease and desist email, 48 hours to comply, from the HOA's legal department. I'd never even heard of them before buying my farm. Yet now they claimed I was trespassing on a corridor dedicated to community use. The map they attached looked official, but nothing matched the surveys I had used for my permits. Desperate, I hired Amanda Foster, an old-school property attorney who could sniff out a lie just by how the ink dried. Her office smelled like books and coffee. She studied every page, nodding as she read. "HOAs have resources, but your case looks solid," she said, "as long as you respect the paper trail." She took me to the recorder's vault, found maintenance logs and plat maps dating back to 1962, decades before Rebecca's HOA even existed. Our plan was simple. Get an injunction, show the judge the real history, and if the HOA didn't back off, go to trial. We got our injunction. Judge Anderson ordered the gate removed within 72 hours. For the first time in months, I felt like maybe, just maybe, the law was on my side. I called my sister to tell her. "See, sometimes the system works." That feeling lasted about 6 hours, until I found my mailbox smashed in, mail scattered, and a note on my door. "Drop the lawsuit or face consequences." That's when it got personal. Amanda warned me, property fights can turn ugly. She wasn't kidding. Rebecca doubled down, filed a $500,000 countersuit, went on TV, and spun a story where I was the villain. The news painted me as a selfish outsider, trying to destroy community harmony. Social media blew up. I lost 2 clients from my consulting business. Even old friends started acting awkward. But a funny thing happened. The more Rebecca tried to ruin me, the more neighbors started talking. Robert, an old-timer, called to say he'd been using my road since the 80s and would testify. Another farmer emailed. His HOA was pulling the same stunt. And then Amanda found the smoking gun. A chain of emails showing Rebecca had planned to force me into a sale, flip the land for millions, and repeat the process with other rural properties. That's when the tide turned. Jennifer Walsh, the HOA secretary, turned whistleblower, brought us drafts of meeting minutes and proof that Rebecca had lied to her own board. Turns out, this wasn't about protecting the neighborhood. It was a business model. Make life impossible, then buy low and sell high. The day Jennifer agreed to testify was the day Rebecca started losing. The trial was everything you'd imagine. Lawyers in sharp suits, maps on projectors, arguments about community standards versus property rights. The county surveyor took the stand and blew Rebecca's case wide open, proved the easement predated the HOA by decades. Then Amanda pulled out the emails, Rebecca's plan to landlock me for profit. The jury's faces said it all. Judge Anderson's ruling hit like thunder. The road was public, the gate was illegal, and the HOA owed me $75,000 in damages. Rebecca's empire collapsed overnight. She was disbarred, sued by her own board, and moved out of state. My story made the news, but this time, I was the guy who stood up, not the troublemaker. The road is open now, smooth and black as hope itself, with new oak trees along both sides, planted by Robert and me as a reminder that principle still matters. Anna would have laughed at how complicated I made it, but she would have been proud. I didn't just win my road back, I helped set a precedent for every landowner in the county. That's the thing about justice. It takes time, paperwork, and a stubbornness most folks don't want to develop. But when it lands hard. So, if you're still listening, tell me, would you have taken the settlement or pushed through for principle? Ever fought an HOA and won, or lost? Let's hear your story in the comments. Justice isn't just a word. Sometimes it's a paved road and a promise kept, no matter how long it takes.